Hello and welcome to the News Made Simple podcast with me, Khomoto Modise. Thank you so much for tuning in and thank you for joining us. Of course, this is the place where we make news simple. All right, it's been an interesting day at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. On the fourth day of the commission, we've seen General Fannie Masemola, who is the National Police Commissioner, take the stand. He was in the hot seat on the fourth day, and there's lots that's come out from him already. But before we get into it, I want to encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe. But share also with your friends and your circle, of course. Inform them that you found a place that makes news simple. And I'd love to hear from you. So pop into the comment section as well as we really go on this journey to make news simple and accessible, maybe I should say. All right, so let's start now with the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. What have we heard so far? So today, Fannie Masemola, who is the National Police Commissioner, was in the hot seat, and he comes after General Madlanga Mkhwanazi finished his testimony on Friday, his 3-day testimony. And over the next few days, what we're going to be hearing is testimony quite a bit from the people that corroborate what Mkhwanazi has said. So we're not expecting to hear testimonies from people that come out and say, Mkhwanazi is lying, it's not true. That's not what we're expecting to hear. We're expecting to hear testimony from all the people that will agree with General Mkhwanazi, corroborate his information. He's been saying it's been a team effort, this crime fighting. All the people on that team are the ones that are going to be coming forward now. And the first one is one of General Mkhwanazi's allies, Fannie Masemola, General Fannie Masemola, who is the National Police Commissioner. And of course, Mkhwanazi and all the other provincial commissioners would answer to Masemola, as he is the top guy in terms of the police. He is the National Commissioner overseeing all of the provinces. So let's get into some of his testimony. Number one, General Fannie Masemola has stipulated on record that the political killings task team was functioning just fine. In fact, it was exceptional, doing exceptional work when the decision to disband it came from Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. Now that's important because we are here because of the disbandment of this political killings task team. It's been referred to as the PKT team. And of course, when the general came out on the 6th of July in that explosive press briefing, what had prompted him to come forward was the fact that the task team was being disbanded and it had done so much work. That's his claim, that's his allegation. Now, Mkhwanazi agrees, and not Mkhwanazi, Masemola agrees, and he corroborates the fact that the political killings task team was doing exceptionally well, cracking some big cases. Now, it's clear from Masemola's testimony that he believes what prompted the disbandment of the political killings task team is or are the events of the month of December. What happened in December? Number one, in December, we saw police closing in on two guys. Number one, Vusi Cat Matlala, alleged crime don or kingpin. Number two, Katiso Cat Molefe, another alleged crime boss. Police closed in on them around the same time. Number one, or first, was Matlala, and police had closed in on him on allegations that he had kidnapped a businessman, Jerry Boshoga. You may remember the story around Jerry Boshoga. And what we know there is that once the complaint had come to Masemola, he had assigned Dumsani Khumalo, who is the crime intelligence boss, to investigate. An interesting statement comes from that. We heard Masemola say that the person who laid the complaint against Vusi Cat Matlala with regards to Jerry Boshoga said that Shadrach Sibia, who was the crime detection boss at the time, still is, but he's suspended now. Shadrach Sibia should not be on this investigation, number one, because Shadrach Sibia is so close with Vusi Cat Matlala. And the inference that's being made there, even though General Fannie Masemola doesn't say it, or he tries to say it, is that Shadrach Sibia has the potential to interfere with the investigation because of his friendship with Vusi Cat Matlala. And what I realized during the testimony by the General Masemola is that he's not a man of many words. The way that he communicates, very similar to the style that we heard from Kwanaz. So you're going to have to be doing a lot of piecing together during his testimony. But his point is, this person was saying, I don't think you should have Shadrach Sibia on this investigation into Jerry Bushokha, because the claim is that Vusi Cat Matlala is behind the kidnapping, and Shadrach Sibia and Vusi Matlala are very, very good friends. The commission then pushed Masemola to say, are you saying the person who's implicated here is Sibia, and how so? And the General Masemola says, no, the person who's implicated here is Matlala, but the person who's laying the complaint is saying, don't put Sibia on this because Matlala and Sibia are very, very good friends. Now, we already know that Matlala has been receiving a lot of preferential treatment. He's been treated very differently to how ordinary South Africans would be treated. We heard last week that he had a couple of his cars were fitted with blue lights by the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department. So what we understand right now is that there is a fear that there are investigations into Matlala that Sibia should not be part of because of their relationship. Now, another thing that we know, or what we heard after that, is that that person, the same complainant, then said to Masemola, the long and short of it is that Vusi Cat Matlala is one of your deputies. You just don't know. And I found that to be such a powerful statement. I keep speaking about the power that Vusi Cat Matlala has. And I keep saying, if you think that his influence is this much, I can tell you it's, a lot more. Because what that complainant said was basically that Vusi is actually like a police officer. And it makes sense. The blue lights on his car, it makes sense. So he says, Vusi is actually a deputy police commissioner, just like Shadrach Sibia. They do similar work. In fact, that's what Masemola says. They did similar work, or they work together. He says, you just don't know. So that came from the General Fannie Masemola. And I found that interesting because this is the first time we have it on record that Vusi Cat Matlala is a person of interest and is directly linked, or could be directly linked, in the murder of Jerry, or not the murder, the kidnapping of Jerry Bushokha. Now, it was around that time in December, around the 6th of December, that this happened, right? That police then went and swooped into the home of Vusi Cat Matlala, did an investigation there at the home. They raided his home in order to investigate Bushokha's kidnapping. Around the same time, Vusi Cat Matlala is then arrested. And he's arrested at his home as well. He's arrested in connection with the murder of Armand Swart, who is the Vereniging engineer who was killed in a mistaken hit. Now, it's around that time. You see, later that month, the minister, Senzo Mchunu, then disbands the political killings task team. That's the same task team that's been leading the investigation into Vusi Matlala as well as Katiso KT Molefe. And do you now see the dots connecting? So the inference that's being made is that the reason why we were told to disband this task team is because we were making headway in cases that are very, very close to people in power. And one of those people that are in power is Shadrach Sibia. But most importantly, the person who's at the very top, Minister Senzo Mchunu, is the one who's getting the directive. Last week we heard from Kwanaz that he believes the people that gave the directive are the syndicate, Matlala, as well as Molefe, and all those people are the people that gave the directive, and they sent Senzo Mchunu to disband this political killings task team. I hope that makes sense to you. All right. Now, something else that came there is that Masemola says the decision to disband the task team was out of nowhere. And it came from the minister at the end of December 2024. And he says he'd seen the minister a short while before that at a funeral, and there was no mention, absolutely no mention, of disbanding the political killings task team. But then the directive comes from nowhere, and he says he's on leave at the time. Now, it really pushed him, he found himself a bit in a corner. I feel that Masemola is a man of not so many words. So very different to the testimony that Mkhwanazi gave, where he's very candid and very outspoken. Masemola is not that. Is really not that. But what we heard from him is that he felt pushed into the corner, pressured so much that then he decided to give in, even though he says the decision to disband the political killings task team is an unlawful one. And that's important because at the beginning of proceedings, he said to the commission that he would not do an unlawful act, even if it came from the minister. Now, towards the end of proceedings yesterday, we hear that at some point, once the directive had come, number one, he tried to stall a bit, took some time in disbanding this political task team. It seems he wanted to say he was buying time, but it didn't come out clearly to me as the person who was watching that he was buying time, hoping that something would change. He says he went to the president. I think that's also an important point. He reported this to the president. And the president said he would speak to Minister Senzo Mchunu. He says the president then came back to him but did not tell him what the resolution reached was. But his understanding was the disbanding was continuing. And then he says that once he realized that the decision to disband was continuing, he then advised that let's wind it down and not close it completely. And he says his logic there was that he didn't want all the work to go to waste. He didn't want all the cases to be abruptly closed. He wanted the cases to still make progress even as the task team was closing. Commissioner Madlanga, the Justice Madlanga, then was really, really hard on him, grilling him on that, saying, how did you agree to the disbanding of this task team? Because you're saying it's an unlawful act. Remember, Masemola said that when Senzo Mchunu called for the disbandment of the PKTT, the political killings task team, he was encroaching on his turf or terrain, right? Because it would not be Mchunu's duty to disband. But what we're hearing is that eventually, Masemola says he agreed. Then the question was, how do you agree? Because you're saying this is an unlawful act. Masemola basically saying my hands were tied. I couldn't do anything about it. I'd spoken to the president. I'd done everything I could. And I think when Commissioner Sesibaloyi asked him to say, what could you possibly have done? That really helped him in communicating his stance, because he's saying I'd done everything in my power, but the Justice Madlanga was very stern on him to say, you said you would not do anything illegal or agree to do anything illegal, but here was the minister forcing you to do something illegal, and you eventually agreed. You agreed to wind down, even though you agreed to the closing of the task team, whether you're going to do it immediately, because he was saying the minister said I should do it immediately. I decided to do it slowly and wind down. But then the view was whether you're saying you're winding down or not, you agreed to do this act, and it's an unlawful act according to you. So that was a really strong engagement there from the commissioner. And I want to hear from you. Do you think Commissioner Madlanga is being unreasonable? I think that the commissioner has the responsibility to get the truth out of witnesses. And he should not be treating witnesses with kid gloves. But I also think these are not criminal proceedings, and they should not be run like they're criminal proceedings. I think witnesses should be encouraged to come forward and speak, even if what they say is incriminating, so we can get to the truth. So it's clear that Fannie Masemola had a tough time with that answer, or with that question, really trying to give his account on that. But he had a commissioner in Madlanga who was not letting him go, saying, this was unlawful, you agreed to do it, why did you agree to do it? Ultimately, Fannie Masemola said, there was no other way. The minister, or not the minister, but it was General Nkandla had even gone to Parliament at some point to report this. So we had no other way, ultimately I had to do it. And only then did we then see later, a few months later, Nkwanati deciding to come out. But the testimony of General Masemola is an important one, because it shows from an operations perspective what the difficulties and the challenges are in the police, where there is a minister who is allegedly interfering or could be interfering, and a commissioner who's trying to carry out the work of the police. That's what it looks like. Of course, these are all still allegations against Mchunu, as well as Sibia and everyone. So we need to wait to hear how Mchunu answers this and gives a reason for why he decided to disband the political killings task team. Of course, the allegation is that he did that because his friends were being arrested, his friends that are criminals and are part of a syndicate. The General Masemola will continue with his testimony today, and we're expecting to hear a lot more from him about the work of the political killings task team, as well as these characters, Vusi Cat Matlala and Katiso KT Mulefa. The takeaway from me, really is the fact that someone has felt that Vusi Cat Matlala is so powerful that he's even a deputy, basically a national police commissioner, deputy national police commissioner that we know nothing about. Let's keep our eye on the commission. I'm here to give you regular summaries on this. I am away. I am at a conference, and so I'm going to try keep you abreast while I also go about my day. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for staying tuned. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with all your friends and all in your circle, and let's continue to make news simple.